My Last Duchess. It was first published in the volume of poems called Dramatic Lyrics in 1842. We can regard it as one of the finest dramatic monologue, not only of Browning, but we can say in the whole range of English literature. Hello friends, welcome to ELS, English Literature Studies with Gaur Harpe. Today we'll discuss My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. So let's get started. These are the points I'm going to discuss through this poem. First is the portrait of the last duchess, then her expression and what are the reasons behind her expression which are shown by the painter Fra Pandolf, right? Then simplicity of the duchess, then the duke's consciousness of his dignity, right? And then the Duke and the dowry and the bronze statue of Neptune. These are the points I'm going to discuss. And sorry for the delay in the video because of some health issues. I was not able to upload any video. So I'm sorry once again for that. So let's get started. First, when I'm going to start this poem, let me brief this poem that Browning's My Last Duchess is spoken by the Duke, the husband of the Duchess, who is dead, right? And the Duke shows his visitor the painting of the Duchess, and then he speaks about her. When he speaks, his speech reveals both the character of the Duchess and his own character, right? And the Duke of Ferrara shows the portrait to the envoy of a count, the envoy who has come to negotiate the marriage of his daughter with the Duke, right? And this Duke tells his guest that the portrait was painted by a famous painter. So now let's start with the first line. That's my last duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive, I call. That piece, I wonder now, Fra Pandolf's hands, Fra Pandolf is the name of the painter, worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you sit and look at her, I said. The Duke or the speaker, the Duke of Ferrara, shows his visitor or directs the attention of his guest to painting of his former wife, the Duchess of Ferrara, which hangs on the wall. Fra Pandolf is the painter of this portrait, and the name again is imaginary one invented by Browning, right? And the Duke praises the painting for looking so lifelike, right? He said that worked busy a day, and there she stands. This painting is looking so lifelike, and then remarks on how hard the painter Fra Pandolf worked hard on it. And the Duke asked the guest to sit and look at the work, right? Fra Pandolf by design for never read strangers like you, that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, right? The depth and passion of its earnest glance. Duke then explains that he deliberately mentioned the name of the painter because strangers like you, they look at the Duchess' painted face with its deep, passionate and earnest glance as if they want to know, they want to ask Duke why the Duchess had such a serious, passionate look on her face, and as though they would ask if they dared how an expression like that come into her face. They will turn to the Duke because it is only the Duke who pulls back the curtain, right? That reveals the painting. But to myself they turned, right? They will turn to the Duke, but to myself they will turn to the Duke. Myself means Duke. They will turn to Duke because it is the only Duke who the curtain I have drawn for you. It is only the Duke who pulls back the curtain that reveals the painting. And seemed as they would ask me if they durst, how such a glance came there, so not the first. Are you to turn and ask thus? Sir, it wasn't. He said that they will turn to me and they would like to ask about this serious, passionate look on her face, but they would ask if they dared how an expression came into her face, right? They have to dare to ask me. And the Duke reiterates that the guest isn't the first person. He is not the first person So note the first are you to turn and ask. He says that you are not the first person to ask the same question. Her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheeks, perhaps. The Duke continues by saying that it was not only his presence that brought that look into the painted eyes of the Duchess, or the blush of happiness into her painted cheek. Fra Pandolf chanced to say her mental lapse over my lady's wrist too much or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat, such stuff. The Duke explains the look on the face of the Duchess, right? Duke says that anything could delight the Duchess or anything could make her blush, even small remarks made by the painter. Perhaps the painter Fra Pandolf had happened to compliment her by saying her shawl drapes over her wrist too much, or paint could never recreate the paint half flush that is fading on her throat. Was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy she had? A heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed, right? Here Duke insists that the former Duchess thought that polite comments were reason enough to blush. And the Duke continues with his criticism of the Duchess and criticizes her in a halting way for being too easily made happy or impressed. He says that she is too easily impressed, and he criticizes her that simplicity that she with anybody can impress her so easily. And Duchess. And she will blush when somebody passes a polite comment that and according to Dick, that is not the reason to blush at anyone, right? She looked on and her looks went everywhere. Sir, it was all one my favor at her breast. He also claims that she liked everything and everyone she saw. The Duke objects that he doesn't like this manner of the Duchess. He objects to his former Duchess on this point. Everything was the same and made her equally happy. So he was not happy with her, this simplicity with her, this behavior. He, according to him, he cannot explain how simple-hearted she was. She felt pleased and impressed by little things. She had no taste. That is the reason that she feels impressed by little things. It means she had no taste. She looked at everything and liked whatever she looked at. She, according to Duke, she is not able to differentiate between good and bad, right? She has a bad taste. She has no sense of discrimination. And this is the reason that he was not happy with his Duchess, right? The dropping of the daylight in the west, the bow of cherries, some officious food, broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each. Whether it was a brooch or whether it was a present from him that she wore at her chains, the sun setting in the west, a branch of cherries which some offered her, or the white mule she rode on around the terrace, right? She was happy with all these things. Whenever she is presented with these little things, she felt equally pleased, right? She always responded joyfully to everything without any discrimination, without any, we can say, any sort of discrimination. She felt equally pleased when she was presented a branch of cherries by some foolish man, or when she had to ride on a mule round the terrace. All these ordinary things brought that smile on her face, right? And the Duke tells his guest that the Duchess thanked people for ordinary gifts. She did not mind that, but she thanked people in a way that she made no difference between the honor of marrying a Duke. That is the reason that is the criticism done by Duke. That is the reason he was not happy with Duchess. What draw from her alike the approving speech or blush? At least she thanked man, good or but thanked. Somehow I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Who had stooped to blame this sort of travelling, even had you skill? He claims that she would say the same kind words or give the same blush in response to all these things. She will not discriminate between these things. And he also objects to her manner of thanking men. Although he struggles to describe his concerns, specifically he complains that she does not consider his value, she doesn't consider his social position, his 900 years old name, as this name is equally important to anyone else gives to her. In fact, her behavior is so silly that he does not even lower himself to the level of scolding her, right? He was fed up with the foolish behavior of the Duchess, but he was... we can say it was below the dignity of Duke to point out her faults, telling her that she had this or that fault, or she lacked this thing, and he's saying that it was below his dignity to point out the Duchess. The Duke says that he would have also been lowering himself even if Duchess had accepted all his criticism without argument and expressed regret for all feelings, but he was too proud to ask her to mend her ways. This is the reason, right? In speech which I have not to make you aware, quite clear to such an and say just this or that, and you disgust me, you miss. The Duke rhetorically asks whether anyone would actually lower themselves enough to argue with someone about their behavior, right? Then or their exceed the mark, and if she let herself be blessed, so nor plainly set her words to ears, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without? Much the same smile this grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stooped together, there she stands. The Duke considered it below his dignity to show her how her behavior made him angry. The Duchess smiled at the Duke, but that was not enough for him, as she smiled at everyone in the same manner. She is not able to discriminate between her smile. She is not able to we can say she's not able to give hypocrite smile. She does not carry false smile for foolish men, and one, we can say, one smile for her husband, that who is Duke, right? He says that she's not able to differentiate between the foolish men and between me. She's not able to differentiate how to react to ordinary people or ordinary things and how to react towards me. We can say this characteristic of Duchess disgusts the Duke. The Duke then returns to his earlier refrain about his former wife's indiscriminate happiness and complains to his guests that when the Duchess did smile at him, whenever they passed, she gave everyone else the same smile, right? And the Duke explains that she began smiling at others even more. So he gave orders, and all her smiles stopped forever because he had killed her, and now she only lives on the painting, right? Then all smiles stop together. There she stands. Much the same smile. Much the same smile. He said that she has the same smile for everything, and this grew. I gave commands. Now he commit that I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. There she stands. She used to smile whenever he passed by her, but she greeted everybody with the same smile, and she continued to do so, and all this became unbearable to the Duke. So he ordered, I gave commands. So he ordered her to be killed, and thus death put an end to her all smiles, right? As if alive, will it please you rise? We will meet the company below. Then I repeat, the Count here master's non-munificence is ample warrant that no just pretends. The Duke then asked the guest to stand up. Will it please you rise? He asked the guest to stand up and go with him to meet the rest of the guests downstairs, the company below, the guest downstairs. He also says that the Count revealed here as the guest masters and the father of the Duke's prospective bride to be, right? She is so, we can say, she's so known for his generosity in matters of money that no request the Duke could make for a dowry could be turned down. The Duke here also adds quickly quickly that he has always insisted since the beginning of the discussions that the Count's beautiful daughter and not the dowry is his primary objection, right? He says that he tells the envy that his rich master is well known for his generosity, and his generosity is a sufficient guarantee that he will give a rich dowry, right? Here the count here master's known munificence. Munificence here means great generosity, right? And ample means enough, and warrant mean guarantee, right? And of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self as an award. At starting is my object, nay, we will go. At starting is my object. And the Duke cleverly suggests to the envoy his hope of getting a good dowry from the Count, right? He cleverly adds that he's primarily interested in the beautiful daughter of the Count and not in the dowry as such. He says that at starting is my object. Daughter, fair daughter is my object, that he lays stress on the beautiful daughter of the Count, not in the dowry as such, right? Then he says, nay, we will go together down. Sir, notice Neptune though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which Claus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. The Duke and the envoy prepare to go downstairs now, and the Duke draws the attention of his guest to a bronze statue of sea god Neptune. Taming a seahorse. Taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which Claus of Innsbruck. The Duke says that this is a rare piece of art, and this rare piece of art was made for him by the famous sculptor Claus of Innsbruck, and thus he shows himself to be great lover of art, right? So friends, this is all about my last duchess, which is not to be studied as a poem of love and optimism. It may be treated as a poem of revolt in love, right? According to Browning, its main interest lies in the treatment of evil. Evil, which is, according to Browning, is as important as good in life, right? So the character of the last duchess shines brightly when we see evil in the Duke, when we see jealousy, cunningness breed in the character of Duke, right? And on the other hand, we see innocence and goodness flourishing in the Duchess, right? And what is exciting about this poem is that whenever we read this poem, when we see we find out about the Duke as he speaks, we know more about his character and the story of the woman who was married to him, right? The more he talks in this poem, the more we come to know about the Duke, right? And the poet turns here every reader, his reader, into a detective mind. He turns his reader into as a detective who looks for clues, turning every line inside out for what it reveals, right? So friends, this is all about today's topic. I hope you will like the content, and if you like it, please hit the like button, share and subscribe my channel, and if you're new to my channel, please hit the bell button so that you can get notifications for my upcoming videos. Thanks a lot for watching.